depending on when you're watching this video. For me, it's, 5 minutes after midnight this morning, I guess. But as the evening proceeded on, I've been dealing with some things. The Lord's been putting a lot of stuff on my heart. Let me just cut to the chase here. Long story short is something coming upon me tonight. I guess the Lord, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I felt like I needed to type in how to biblically deal with a narcissist. So I typed that in to Google, and I found something. So I decided to email it to myself and print it off. Now, I read about the first paragraph when it dawned on me, wait a minute. Maybe I should be learning this at the same time that I'm doing a video to try and attempt to help others, whether male or female, whom are dealing with a narcissistic spouse. Okay. The world will say that there's no hope for a narcissist. There's no changing a narcissist. And that you need to run, get away from the narcissist as quickly as possible. Deep down within my heart, I know that is very incorrect on a biblical standpoint, especially when you're in a marriage. If you haven't married the narcissist, then yeah, maybe run as quick, as fast, as hard as you can. But once you're in a marriage, we are bound to that marriage, save for the reasons of adultery. Okay, and that's biblical. I should have thought to have that scripture there for you, but type in adultery and KJV next to it, and you get all kinds of scriptures for adultery and the bonds of marriage and so on and so forth. Anyway, once you're married, it doesn't matter whether your spouse is a narcissist or not. Okay, it doesn't matter. The way the Lord sees that is you should have known who your spouse was prior to getting married. Now me, I was a little ignorant. I felt the need to get married within 2 weeks of meeting my wife. I did not take the proper time to learn who she was and get to know her. And that falls on me. And I just have to say, I know she's going to end up seeing this video. She sees all my videos, and she's going to get extremely mad at me for this video. But you know what? I'm not calling her name out, and most of you don't know who she is. The only of you that know who she is the ones of you that she decided to start talking to because she felt that I was blasting her out, even though I never once said her name. And I'll apologize in advance to her for this video if she feels it hurts her, but I won't apologize for bringing the truth in order to help others through and save their marriages. Mine appears to be a lost cause. but I'd like to save each and every one of your marriages. For me, I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't realize that I was dealing with a narcissist. Had no clue. After everything blew up, I would come to learn, well, she continued to call me a narcissist. And me, I'm the type of person that all I knew about narcissism was it was a derogatory word because she used it, she called me that every time she was angry at me. So to me, it was a hostile word, a negative word, but I had no clue what it was. But what I did know was I wanted to know what narcissism was, because if I was a narcissist, I needed to know that so that I could change that about myself. However, even though I knew I needed to figure out what a narcissist was, it didn't quite sink in enough during my actual marriage to really begin digging very deep. I dug just enough to, okay, maybe I could have some of them traits. I definitely don't have those, but yeah, I might have a couple of those traits, type of thing. And so I, for the most part, dismissed it. Well, then when the collapse of my marriage finally happened, and to the extreme that it happened, it was after that that I really began to dig in. One thing I learned is that if you are questioning whether you're a narcissist or not, if you're truly questioning that, great chance you're not actually a narcissist. Through my research, everything that I have found out is a true narcissist will automatically deny being a narcissist. And then on top of that, they will seek revenge for you having called them a narcissist. It's just the way they're wired. But they will never inquire as to what a narcissist is. And if they do, it'll only be for the reasons of deception to try to flip it around on the person they're wanting to flip it around on and use it against them. Okay. I'm not going to go into all the details, right? I'm not going to go into many details at all right now as to what a narcissist is. If you're watching this video, more than likely you already know what a narcissist is because you've already dealt with it. Now, I have a special kind of dilemma on my hands. Okay. I have every biblical right to divorce. And truly, with every fiber of my being, I want a divorce. However, for 2.5 years since our separation, there's this nagging little thing within me. I can't explain what it is. I really can't. I mean, aside from God himself, maybe. That's the only thing it really can be, honestly. I keep having this nagging feeling like I'm not supposed to give up on her. Even though every fiber of my being screams, you'll end up in prison. You'll end up losing your son. You'll lose everything again. She'll take it all from you again, except this time it'll be 10 times worse. Why would any man or woman want to put themselves through that again? Still yet, not that I have any love left for her within the carnal me, the spirit man keeps finding myself battling a dilemma Well, I guess I never really paid much attention to the story of Hosea in the Bible, the book of Hosea. I mean, I read it once, but it was in the course of me reading the entire Bible way back in 2005. Back in 2005, I hadn't had any experience much with marriage or relationships, or definitely not narcissists. So, nor women that was not faithful, or, for you women watching, men that aren't faithful, whatever. So I didn't really, the book of Hosea never stood out to me. So I never thought anything more about it. Well, I was watching something the other night and began to talk about Hosea. And I'm like, huh? I had to research. Wait a minute. So went and found a movie called Amazing Love. Something about the story of Hosea. Amazing Love, the story of Hosea, something like that. And that movie really got me to thinking. Still yet, just as in the entire 2.5 years since my separation, still had no clue as to the next step to take as far as trying to understand anything. Until tonight, it just popped in my brain. Google how to biblically deal with a narcissist. So I did. To my surprise, I actually found something. I honestly didn't expect to find anything. Or if I did, it would have been a YouTube video or something, But I actually found something written by, let's see, because I want to make sure that I give credit to the authors. This was written by, wait a minute. Let's see, this article was co-authored by Jay Reed, LPCC, and WikiHow staff writer Nahal Shetty. Jay Reed is a licensed professional clinic counselor in private practice in San Francisco, California. He specializes in helping clients who have survived a narcissistic parent or partner. Treatment focuses upon helping clients identify and challenge self-diminishing beliefs as a result of narcissistic abuse. Jay holds a BA in psychology from the University of Pennsylvania and an MS in clinical psychology from Penn State University. Now that I've given that bit of disclaimer, maybe I'm going to read this article. That was, and it says it was last updated May 16th, 2022. All right. How can faith in God help you navigate a relationship with a narcissist? Plenty of ways, as it turns out. Narcissism is a psychological condition that results in the sin of excess pride. As a Christian, you know that pride is something to be weary of. God has your back when it comes to dealing with the prideful, and we're here to show you how. Here's our complete guide on how to biblically deal with a narcissist. Number 1, see the narcissist for who they are. Understanding that someone is a narcissist gives you clarity. Narcissism often comes with compensating for a deep woundedness. In early stages of a relationship with a narcissist, you may feel flattered by their attention and idolize them. If you become sucked into their orbit, this can be a kind of idolatry where you prioritize them over spiritual and emotional well-being. Wow. Apparently I didn't quite, okay. So, all right. So, yeah, I didn't even get to this point of it yet. When I started reading, I read, the very first paragraph, and then I didn't read this part. So we're hearing this at the same time together, and we're going to see what it has to say. But anyway, let me back up so I can make sure to catch everything myself. If you become sucked into their orbit, this can be a kind of idolatry where you prioritize them over your spiritual and emotional well-being. Okay, for me, that's exactly what happened. The Lord had began a great work in me about 6 months to a year prior to meeting my wife. I was writing lots of songs. I going to church, so on and so forth. I was actually starting to get life together a little bit. Now, wasn't on my own accord. The Lord was helping me, but I was starting to get together. I was starting to feel good about myself. Um, uh, for the first time in my life, I'd even went out and bought several brand new wardrobes and didn't even care what I paid for the clothes. All my life I'd been a penny pincher, and I would never allow myself to spend any kind of money on myself. So for the first time in my life, but only after God had given me a particular song, and in that song was the lyrics of, "Now it's time. Now I got to get myself cleaned up, work on my self-image, um, something rather blah blah blah." But at the time, I remember that stood out to me so much. And after I finished the song, I sat back and I'm like, "What are you trying to tell me, Lord?" Long story short, I decided that was it. I had had enough. So the next, and I was doing a lot of buying, selling, trading back then. So the next big cash sale I made, I said, "That's it. I'm not using this cash sale as another investment. Not into material, not into cars and that different type of thing as far as to resell. Instead, I decided to invest in myself." And I went out and spent $1,000, $1,500 on a new cowboy hat, a new pair of oh, some name brand shoe. I can't remember what it was now. Uh, and then new belt and several new pants and shirts. Uh, and then, funny enough, all my trade deals had landed me a Corvette somewhere around that same time frame. And so I went out, bought all them new clothes, put on a fresh set of clothes, everything all brand new. I remember the first outfit I put on I was wearing at least $500, $600, $700 worth of clothes, between clothes, shoes, new cowboy hat, belt, so on. And then I went and got in that Corvette and put the top down and let the wind blow through my hair as I shifted through the gears, and I felt like a brand new man. Man, I had never felt so alive in my life. So there I was, cruising the open roads, brand new clothes on, driving a dream car I never even thought I'd ever own in my life, and giving thanks to God for that. I was finally getting the joy back in my life after I, never having any joy. And then, even more so, I had spent the prior 3 years as a hermit and just didn't really ever leave the house anymore. And I, yeah, I went into a very bad state. But anyway, so about 6 months to a year prior to finding my wife, the Lord began working on me, sent somebody into my life that actually helped me along in that journey. And so then yeah, I was doing real good. I was gaining a lot of joy, gaining a great, a deep walk with the Lord. And I guess I'm going to keep reiterating a few times that I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life at that point. Then I met my wife, and I I sure did start, I began to prioritize her over my spiritual and emotional well-being. I met her, and then I allowed myself to become consumed with her. Everything I did was with her, around her, however. And I soon found myself barely even talking to God anymore. Wasn't writing songs anymore. And before I knew it, I was married to her. It says, in early stages of a relationship with a narcissist, you may feel flattered by their attention and idolize them. Yes, I certainly felt flattered, and admittedly, I idolized her. Let's carry on. I don't want to be too terribly long on this video. Remember that God is where our greatest happiness comes from, not other people. As the Bible tells us, the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Some signs of narcissism include an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a need to have a constant admiration, a preoccupation with fantasies of power, beauty, and brilliance, monopolizing conversations, and an inability to recognize the needs of others. Once you identify someone as a narcissist, you can start being more careful in your relationship with them. Try not to let them suck you into their orbit. And remember that you should rely first on God and yourself. It's not so easy to it's not so easy to identify someone as a narcissist. It's just not. I mean, unless you've already had previous experience with a narcissist, the narcissist love bombs you, and you are blinded by that love so much so, or the sense of love, not it, because a narcissist can't necessarily love anything. I, they, but they can, but they have a way of making you feel loved, making you feel special. Okay, anyway, carrying on. Virtue gives you strength, so don't let a narcissist shut you down. Narcissists can often make it impossible for you to get any words in during a conversation. So try to claim some space for yourself. Remember that as a Christian, being merciful and forgiving does not mean you have to be a pushover. Narcissists can often make it impossible for you to get any words in during a conversation. Try to claim some space for yourself. Remember that as a Christian, being merciful and forgiving does not mean you have to be a pushover. I know with mine, I tried to walk away. Whenever we would get into it and I'd see that I wasn't going to get anywhere, I'd try to walk away, but I wouldn't be allowed to walk away. I'd try to leave, and I would literally be grabbed and held onto, and my shirt ripped off as I'm trying to struggle to get away. Nobody ever seen that, though. And of course, men don't ever talk about such things with anybody else. However, women do. And that began stuff like that began another phase of the narcissism. They begin to cut you off from the rest of the world. A narcissist will begin to tell everybody, your friends, your family, their family, anybody that'll listen to them, they'll begin to tell them all these bad things about you. Doesn't matter true or false. They're going to tell all these bad things about you. But then they're going to say something along the lines of, but I really love him or her for this reason. And they'll put just enough out there to justify why they're still there and to try to make it sound like they are being neutral and they're trying to accept blame for their own actions. They'll even say they'll even say verbatim, well, I guess I have to admit my own wrongdoings, and they'll tell just enough of something they did to make it appear as if they're really accepting fault for their wrongdoings, to make the other person that they're talking to actually believe them. But they'll never tell anything that really makes them look bad. They'll never admit to hitting their spouse or cheating on their spouse. It just won't happen. But they'll admit to such thing, something small like, yeah, I got mad and I threw his favorite coffee cup and broke it. But then even when they do that, they'll probably off time they may admit to that just to make themselves look like they're accepting blame. But oft times, depending on what the reasons is for telling something like that, even they'll make excuses. Yeah, he made me so mad, and then the moment I grabbed his coffee cup and I threw it across the room and broke it. Yeah, I was wrong for that, but there'll always be that but. Anyway, I'm sidetracking. Remember that as a Christian, being merciful and forgiving does not mean you have to be a pushover. The Bible emphasizes the importance of standing your ground against abusive people. That's why I stopped there, was talking about claim some space for yourself. And remember that you don't have to be a pushover even though you're a Christian. Well, I tried that. So, and it did not work for me. Let's see. Claim your space, or claim some space for yourself, and remember, does not mean you have to be a pushover. A Christian does not have to be a pushover. Okay, so I'm gonna put this as number 1, and number 2 as things that ain't right with this particular deal, at least in my experience. But let's see what else we got. Bible emphasizes the importance of standing your ground against abusive people. Like a muddied spring or a polluted fountain is a righteous man who gives way before the wicked, of Proverbs 25:26. To claim space in a conversation, say something like, I've heard what you've had to say. Do you mind if I speak? Okay. De-escalate the situation if you're being attacked. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. That's good advice. As a Christian, okay. De-escalating the situation. There is a normal common denominator between everybody on planet Earth. A common need within everybody, at least originally, until they choose consciously choose to do something about it, and therefore not having that need anymore, which is still hard. But that common need is the needing to defend yourself. We must defend ourselves is the attitude. We cannot allow somebody to accuse us of something that we haven't done, but to sit there and berate us for something that we haven't done, whatever. Simply being accused. Okay. However, as a Christian, we learn how to love because we learn what love truly is. Love truly is God. And that type of love is called an agape type of love. Okay. Once we learn that agape kind of love, everything changes. Everything changes. So what I'm going to add here is it says de-escalate the situation if you're being attacked. Okay. I'm going to add de-escalate the situation by using love. Carrying on. You can't win an argument with a narcissist, so reduce the conflict. That's very true. You're never going to win an argument with a narcissist. So reduce the conflict. While you should not tolerate any kind of abuse, spending your time trying to dispute the narcissist's version of events will likely prolong any argument. That is very, very true. De-escalation can keep you from giving the narcissist more ammunition to rage at you. And that's absolutely true too. The more you try to defend yourself with a narcissist, the more ammunition that they are going to gather against you. They are going to twist your words around. And when you do actually start to begin to make a point that they absolutely have no argument for, then they'll run you around in circles. They'll quickly jump over to another topic. They'll have your head spinning so fast you won't know if you're coming, going, where at in the conversation you are. And before you know it, you're just like, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. You'll be admitting to everything, even though you did nothing or did very little. All right. Trust me, I know. And that's another thing. I finally had dealt with so much that I was tired, exhausted, to the point that I finally gave up and said, you know what? Told myself, you know what? I'm tired of arguing, so I'm just going to admit to anything she accuses me of, just to end the argument. I'll just admit to it and apologize. Here's the problem with that. By doing that, just to resolve the argument at the moment, once you admit to something that you didn't actually do, then they truly believe that you actually did do it. And they will continue to throw that back up in your face every time they're mad at you. Every time they're mad at you, they're going to throw it up. And over time, it compiles. Things compile. Okay, you've admitted to this. You've admitted to this over here, this over there, so on and so forth. And now, in the midst of some of these things you've admitted to, there's going to be a few things here or there that you actually did do. You actually were sorry for, whatever the case is. But there's going to be a bunch of things that you didn't do that are still getting thrown up in your face years and years later. For me, what was it? I admitted to there was many things I admitted to anyway, and praise the Lord, I've been able to put a lot of this out of my memory bank somehow. That's awesome. Anyway, there was lots of things that I admitted to just to shut the argument down. And even long after our final separation, to this day, if I entertain her and allow her to speak on in regards to anything other than our son, and I allow the conversation to go in a direction of talking about our marriage in the past, she'll still throw these things up at me and bring them back to my memory, make me try and attempt to make me have to relive all this nonsense again. I finally had enough of that after we'd separated, and I tried to explain to her some of those things she was throwing back up at me. I tried to tell her, I didn't actually do those things. I admitted to them because I was tired of arguing. To this day, she'll still call me a liar. She truly believes that all those things she accused me of and that I admitted to, that I actually did them. My personal advice to anybody dealing with a narcissistic spouse is do not admit to doing something that you did not do. If you did it, fess up to it. Be a man, be a woman, fess up to it, apologize, deal with the consequences. But if you didn't do it, don't admit to it. Please, I beg of you, for your own spiritual health and well-being, do not admit to doing something you did not do for the sake of an argument. Trust me, it'll be much, much worse in the future. Anyway, let me carry on. You can't win an argument with a narcissist, so reduce the conflict. While you should not tolerate any kind of abuse, spending your time trying to dispute the narcissist's version of events will likely prolong any argument. It will. De-escalation can keep you from giving the narcissist more ammunition to rage at you. Silence can be a useful strategy. It can, but silence sends them into a rage as well. This is using the silent treatment, or not really the silent treatment. That's kind of a bad term. Silent treatment is used when you want to punish somebody, but exercising your right to remain silent for the reasons of love, for the reasons of, say, agape love, trying to de-escalate something, knowing that if you don't remain silent, only negative can come from it. Nothing positive can come from not remaining silent. Well, I lost track there. There's a difference between giving a person the silent treatment in a means of revenge and punishment. And then there's the being silent for reasons of the old saying, if you have nothing nice to say nothing at all. Okay, if you're doing it for that reason, that's very wise, very healthy. Yeah, they're going to scream at you, "What cat got your tongue?" So on and so forth. They're going to push your buttons. And when you go silent, well, at least for me anyway, my experience was when I went silent, that's when the verbal abuse really started, in the means of calling me such vile, horrible names. And even though I got out every day and busted my butt to make a good life for us, I was constantly put down, told that I never do anything and I'm lazy, and that her deceased husband was a harder worker than me, so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into all the verbal abuse that I dealt with, but yeah, So you have to be prepared for that when you do go silent, okay? You got to pick between two evils. One, give them more ammunition to use against you that will keep the argument going and going and going and going. And also to give them more ammunition to throw up at you again and again and again and again with every new argument from that point forward. So it still is better to go silent in a situation like that and allow them to verbally abuse you, tell you what a horrible person that you are, so on and so forth. Okay. But while they're telling you that, I'm going to tell you, before I even read on, I'm going to guess this is what this says as well. But I'm going to tell you, while they're doing that, you just go blank in your mind as far as like try to black out in a sense. Not really black out, but tune them out. Let them talk, but tune that person out. And while you're tuning them out, just give it to God. Just start saying, God, please forgive me of my sins. Because you always want to come to the Lord with a clean heart. Say, God, please forgive me of my sins. And with that, Lord, I need you right now. I'm surrendering to you right now, Lord. This situation is not good. Yes, I'm married, so I got myself into this. I don't know how to deal with this right now, Lord. Sort of the silent treatment, letting them spew. I need your help. They will eventually shut up. Okay. The other thing you can do, if you know how to, okay, if you're advanced enough in your walk with the Lord to know how to cast out demons, we believers do have a biblical right to cast out devils. Okay. And we can cast them out of our entire household, away from our family. All right. One other thing that I do know that works, and Satan will sure try to tempt you on it at first. He'll try to push the limits. But something I found that works, if I have to say something, if I absolutely can't keep my mouth shut, I simply say, Jesus Christ. And I say it 3 times in a row. And by the time I've finished that 3rd time, a peace washes over me. And 9 times out of 10, by the 3rd time I've said it, or very quickly after the 3rd time I've said it, if not immediately, it's very quickly afterwards, they decide to shut up. The dynamics of the room begin to start changing from that point on. So if you don't have the strength in you to say Jesus Christ out loud, say it within yourself. But you got to be very careful, okay? Because you could find yourself saying Jesus Christ in the form of blasphemy instead of saying Jesus Christ as in Jesus, Son of the living God. I know you died on the cross for me. And this is part of what you died on the cross for me for, so that I could say your name and the demons know they have to flee. There's something about that name. I'm telling you, it truly does work. Let me carry on. I keep getting sidetracked. Silence can be a useful strategy. Remember that Jesus would not respond when being criticized and attacked by others, and while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Matthew 27:12. Wow. Wow. Oh. When he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Matthew chapter 27, verse 12. And when he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. He exercised his right to silence. I like that. Wow. Let Jesus be our example. WWJD, what would Jesus do? Silence can be a useful strategy. Remember that Jesus would often not respond when being criticized and attacked by others, and while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Matthew 27:12. If a narcissist is criticizing you, try saying something like, I disagree with your assessment of me, and then change the subject. I disagree with the assessment of me, with your assessment of me, and then change the subject. I can't say with 100% certainty that I actually tried that, but I'm fairly certain that I tried that. And if I remember correctly, that would just make her respond with, well, what do you mean you disagree? Is it not true? And just go off on a whole nother rant. But I could be wrong, and each person's different. Each relationship's different. Each couple is different. What didn't work for me might work for you. What did work for me might not work for you. What I can say, though, that will work for both of us is if we will do everything that we do and with agape love, and everything that we say, if we will say what we do with agape love, handle everything with love, things will turn around. That's a fact. Unfortunately, took a lot of heartbreaks over the many, many years dealing with not only my wife, but other people, for me to finally begin to understand what love truly is and how life is so much better and so less about drama when I choose to respond in love instead of out of anger and the need to defend myself. Carrying on, when a narcissist is angry, sometimes the best option is to simply leave the room as quickly and safely as you can. Notice it says sometimes the best option is. Doesn't mean it always works, but every situation can be different. Firm boundaries can keep your relationship manageable. Empathetic confrontation, which I got to add in. Well, now, empathetic confrontation is a strategy that's useful for managing a narcissist's behavior. Empathetic. Okay. And setting up some emotional distance. Try starting a statement with a sign that you know where the narcissist is coming from before setting up a strict boundary that you're willing to enforce. Try starting a statement with a sign that you know where the narcissist is coming from before setting up a strict boundary that you're willing to enforce. The Bible reminds us to set up boundaries to protect our emotional and spiritual health. Above all, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. For example, you might say something like, I understand that you're upset, but if you continue to call me names, I'll be leaving this conversation. I don't believe I ever tried that with my wife. No, I can't say that I ever tried that one. I just shut down and try to leave. I would never say I would never say it like that. So y'all might try that. Might say something like, I understand that you're upset, but, which I have to actually modify that myself a little bit, okay? Because this uses the word you in this statement. It says, I understand that you're upset, but if you continue to call me names, I'll be leaving this conversation. Let's see if there's a better way to word that. I understand that you're upset, but if names are continued, if negative names are continued to be thrown at me, I'll be leaving this conversation. Because one thing we know we don't, that is never healthy in an argument, is using the word you. We want to stay away, as far away from using the word you when we're in an argument, heated discussion, whatever you want to call it. Using the word you automatically puts the other person it puts them in a state of mind to need to defend themselves. It makes them defensive. So as soon as you spit out that word you, the person you spit it to, they just shut down. As soon as you said the word you, they shut down. Now they're not hearing you, because now, as you're finishing your statement, they're formulating in their head what their next statement is going to be to defend themselves. So if you can state what you feel the other person has done without using the word you, the better. So I'll read one more time. Let's try. I understand that you're upset, but if negative names are continued, if negative names, let's see, I understand that you're upset, but if negative names continue to be thrown at me, I'll be leaving this conversation. That way, you just worded that in a manner that see, that you know where they're coming from, but at the same time you set a strict boundary, and you did it without using the word you. Okay, so or you can say something like, and see, this one says the word you again. Well, that's a good part in that one, though. Let's see, it says, I know that you care about me, but criticizing me in front of other people is unacceptable. And if you continue to do this, I won't be inviting you to social events anymore. Okay, I know that you care about me. Using the word you there, that's fine, because that's not putting somebody on the automatic defense. That's a good thing. I know that you care about me. Okay. But criticizing me in front of other people is unacceptable. And instead of saying, and if you continue, say, and if this continues. Then, and instead of saying, I won't be inviting you to social events anymore, might say, if this continues, I'll feel I have to go to these social events by myself from now on. So I'm going to reword that whole sentence. Or you can say something like this. I know that you care about me, but criticizing me in front of other people is unacceptable. And if this continues to happen, I will feel that I need to attend social events by myself from now on. Okay, carrying on. Save your energy for things you can change. There are many worthwhile projects, but fixing a narcissist isn't one. I agree with that. Narcissists have little to no empathy. That's very true. And so it's really difficult for them to change for the better. Instead of beating your head against the wall trying to get a narcissist to treat you better, it's best to instead focus on doing good and meaningful work that matters. The Bible encourages us to have the wisdom to know what to do and when. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3:1. It's okay to sometimes walk away when someone resists your attempts to get them to see the error of their ways. You can't win every battle. That's true. If you're looking for ways to make meaningful impact, try volunteering for your church or offering help to people in your community who are responsive to it. Keep your own values intact. Rise above the provocations of a narcissist. Basically, the provocative. Can't even think of the right word. Anyway, rise above the I can't even pronounce that word. Rise above the provocations of a narcissist. When a narcissist displays bad behavior, whether that's through name calling, shouting, or simply showing you their dangerous levels of pride, be sure not to mimic this behavior. Treat them with kindness and mercy and model Christ-like behavior in all that you do. Keep in mind that in the Bible, of all the things that God hates most, haughty eyes are listed first. Proverbs 6, verses 16 and 17. Pride is a dangerous sin to fall into, so make sure you're not fighting a narcissist's fire with fire. Number 7, pray to maintain your strength. Narcissists try to isolate you, just what I was talking about earlier. I just couldn't quite couldn't think enough to find that word. That was the word I was looking for. But they do. The narcissist tries to isolate you, and that's exactly what my wife did to me. She tried to isolate me. But with prayer, you're never alone. A key tactic that narcissists use is attempting to cut you off from your friends and family, just what I was saying earlier. It's important to resist this isolation as much as possible, but remember that your relationship with God is always there for you. This relationship can give you mental and emotional strength when dealing with toxic behavior. That word toxic, I was trying to think of that word earlier too. Let's see. Remember that when you call on God, He is always listening. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. Jeremiah 29:12. If you're struggling with prayer, think of it as simply having a conversation with God. And I do that a lot. I try to anyway. I just start talking to Him as if He's sitting right next to me, and we're just sitting on the couch chilling, drinking a cup of coffee. Remember that He loves you, that being God, and wants the best for you. Praying for the narcissist can bring you closer to Christ, even if it doesn't change their behavior. As the Bible tells us, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. Luke 6:28. And I've prayed for my wife many, many times. But very seldomly do I pray as I ought. And I don't pray very often. I should be praying every day for her. or giving thanks, or should I say giving thanks every day that God has answered my prayer in regards to her. But it's much easier for the carnal man to not pray because subconsciously they want revenge because of everything that they've been put through. But here's the thing. You got to remember that we don't fight against flesh and blood. See, when we're dealing with a narcissist, this one is hard. This one's really, really hard. And it took me a long time to see this. God seriously had to knock me upside the head. Finally get me to see this and understand it, and then start acting accordingly. Our fight isn't with the narcissist. See, that spouse, she or he, they're not actually a narcissist. I've referred to the narcissist throughout this deal as a narcissist for the sake of trying not to confuse anybody. Now, I hadn't read any of that. That's still all true. I hadn't read any of that prior to starting this video. And honestly, I didn't know that I was about to do this next part either, or add this next part. This is just happening. But anyway, so our fight isn't with the narcissist because the narcissist is not actually a narcissist. Now, I will explain here. Let me do it this way first. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18 say, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." And in verse 12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And it goes on to say, "Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints." So in verse 12 here, we're told who our real fight is with. And then verse 13 through 18 tells us how to fight, who our fight is really with. "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, the rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places." Demonic forces. Satan, his fallen angels. That's what that's all referring to. And then it goes to this. We each must make a decision each and every day and multiple times per day. And that decision is whom in which to serve, God or man, God or Satan. Okay? If we truly choose to serve God, then we surrender our all to him. Meaning, that he is thereby allowed to use our vessels as a tool for good, as a tool for ministry. Our vessels being our body, our mind, our hearts, our souls. However, if we make the decision to serve Satan, then we've just given him the right instead to use our vessels as a tool. So when you make that decision in which whom to serve, you're also making the decision of whom you're going to be a tool for. Each and every human on this earth is a metaphorical tool. Well, I don't know if it's even metaphorical. We're a tool. A tool builds things, correct? Good. We understand then that tools build things. So then you say, well, how are we a tool? What are we building? Okay, if we serve God, if we truly serve God and we are his tool, then what we are building is a number of extra souls that will get to see eternity with Christ. So we're building the population of heaven in aspect, I guess. However, if we choose to serve Satan, thereby he being allowed to use us as a tool, then as a tool for Satan, we are building the population for hell. Because for a tool for him, if we chose him over God, if we chose sin over cleanliness, with every sin, that's what people are seeing from us. However, for the Christian, with every clean act and every clean word, that's what others are seeing from us. And we may never know it while we're on this earth. But though we will get the gratitude of the gratitude, satisfaction, however you want to put it, pleasure, though we'll get the pleasure from time to time of actually seeing the fruits of our of the work the Lord's been able to do through us, being that somebody actually got saved and turned their life around, more times than not, and a great deal more times than not, we'll never even see the effect that we had on somebody. But God sees it all. Oftentimes we're just stepping stones. And I know for me, it gets so hard because for every 100 people I try to help, 99 of those people will have no gratitude. 99 of those people will never learn a thing. They'll continue on. I'll feel like an enabler. I begin to question God, what am I doing all this for? These people don't care and blah, blah, blah. Then comes that 100th person. And they express to me their gratitude, and they begin to tell me how God has used them to used me to change their life. And then I remember, oh yeah, that one person out of 100, that one lost sheep, that's what I'm doing all of this for. For the rest of them, well, I may just be a stepping stone, but that's okay. And if I'm nothing at all, even if I'm not a stepping stone, that's okay. Because I know, had I not done the same thing with those 99, then I wouldn't have done it with that 100th person either. Therefore, I'd have never touched their lives. Or should I say, the Holy Spirit would have never been able to touch their lives using me as a tool. Anyway, know your enemy, being Satan, who you're actually fighting against. Remember, it's not your spouse that you're fighting against, right? So you got to stay in prayer. Go to Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18 to learn who you're fighting about and to learn how to fight. It tells you in there how to fight. Do a complete research. Study that passage, chapter 6 of Ephesians, verses 10 through 18. Just study that passage right there. Do an intense study of that passion, or do an intense study of that passage. And I can promise you, if you will intensely study that passage and ask the Holy Spirit to help you to understand that passage and then apply that passage, I promise you, and I very seldomly, I hardly ever make a promise, but I promise you, without a shadow of a doubt, it will change your life like you could have never believed was possible. So, to close, remember who your enemy is, and then in everything you do it with love, agape love. And with that, I close. I love you, my brothers and sisters in Christ, and I love you, anyone who's watching that has not yet found their place with Christ. Godspeed.